My name is Jeff Morgan and I am from Dallas, Texas. This is part 2 of the video that I just started. It pertains to children whose parents are going through divorce. The question was asked to 70 adults who have been through divorce in themselves as children, who've watched their own parents get divorced. And the question basically was, what would you tell children whose parents are getting divorced? And as I've mentioned before, the divorce attorneys would like to tell you that it's really no big deal. Children are resilient. Children will be happy. Children are happy if their parents are happy. It is perverse, it is immoral, it is evil, it is unjust, it is wicked to make a child responsible somehow for their parents' happiness. And yet this is the counsel coming from these wonderful divorce attorneys and from much of society. You can even see this on TV no matter where you go. Children will be happy. Children are resilient. Now the adult children of divorce, many of these adults whose parents divorced 30 years ago, 25 years ago, whatever it may be, years and years ago, they're talking about their own experience right now, how they felt through it. What would you tell a child whose parents are going through divorce? One person says this to the children: I would urge them to turn to God. Trust Him. He can and will redeem their lives. If my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will take me up. Another person says this to the children: it does not have to be this way for you, for your future. Live your life to be the person you want to be. Do not fear. I am so sorry. You have to deal with this. Another individual says this: I would say to the kids, it is okay to hate that your parents are getting divorced. What? I thought kids are supposed to love the fact and be happy that their parents would be happy. And this person is writing, it is okay to hate that your parents are getting divorced. It's okay to need help to cope. It's okay to see that divorce is bad. It is not a good thing. Divorce is bad. It destroys a family. It destroys a family permanently. It does not reorganize a family. It destroys the natural family.
Well, I think you're making a lot of assumptions about certain specific incidents.
Okay, so tell me what my assumptions are.
Okay, your assumption is that divorce tears apart a family.
Well, it does.
Well, I disagree.
Well, like if you amputate a leg, I have a leg over
Let
the
me answer it. I think a divorce done well is a reorganization of a family.
So you're talking like bankruptcy. Oh, like in the company that's filing for,
Well, you can make fun of me or you can allow me to answer your questions.
I am.
Okay? So what I'm saying is, what we aim to do is just restructure a family that is not going to be together as a unit like they were.
Because one person says, I don't want it.
One person said, I don't want it.
A family that children should have a right to. It is a grave injustice to children when a family that a child is born into is destroyed. It's okay to see that divorce is bad and still love your parents, even though you recognize that what they did was wrong. Wrong. I thought we lived in a no-fault society and we can't blame anybody. In fact, you're blaming me. Quit judging me. This person is telling the children it is okay to tell your parents and to know that what your parents did was wrong. They may not be bad people, but they did decide to do a bad thing. It's okay to love them still. And I just want to hug them and cry with them, because I know the pain. Another person says this: my dear little brother or sister, what is happening between your parents is not your fault. It is not your fault. Once again, I go back to the issue. How many children think maybe it was me that caused my parents to get divorced? Maybe that's the reason my daddy left. Maybe that's the reason my mommy did not want to be with me anymore. Maybe it was something about me.
Going back to the long-term effects, still to this day, I have children who will come cry on my shoulder and sob. Not just cry, sob over the situation. The kids blaming themselves. Every one of them except for one at some point has said, this must be my fault. That has come out at different points in time, but it was not at first. That was further on down the line.
This is a very common thing that goes through the children's minds. This idea that somehow children are resilient, children are happy when their parents are happy. It is a lie from the pit of hell, repeated by divorce attorneys, repeated by society to try to assuage their own guilty consciences and perhaps to justify their work of destroying families for profit.
Conflict is what is disruptive to children. And you can have conflict in an intact home, and you can have a conflict in two separate homes. So what parents need to do is avoid that conflict for their children and rise above that. Yeah, I'm mad because my husband filed for divorce and there's nothing I can do to stop him, but I'm not going to take it out on my child.
Nobody's asking you to do that, obviously. But as a protective mom,
what you're suggesting is this process creates the destruction of the family because the parents are so upset that they take it out on their children. Because they're going to visit with both parents. They're going to
Not
see
necessarily.
both parents.
Dr. Jennifer Harman's paper about a year and a half ago, it shows there are 30 million severely alienated children and parents. That is entirely severed connection. There is no family left. It's family shredding, it's family destruction. There's another 30 million on top of that who are suffering a mild or moderate form of that. The science of adverse childhood experiences shows that it induces such toxic stress and complex trauma in the children and parents. The result of what family courts are doing is 30 million dead or dying. Okay, that rises to a crime of humanity. This is genocide at a grand scale. It's democide, killing of its own people by the government. So if there is any moral or spiritual value system, this needs to come to a stop. This is not tolerable under any circumstances.
it will be hard, but never, never, ever think for a moment that the divorce is something that you did. To the children, I would say this: Jesus is here for you. In every pain and every tear, cry out to Jesus. Another person adds this: I would tell the children to be 100% brutally honest about their feelings without guilt. Most won't because they feel guilty and they are afraid of losing their parents completely. By this time, it's really too late. Too often, parishes, churches, people around you, they don't talk about sin. They don't talk about chastity. They are too collegial, too enabling. Sometimes the very institutions that should be opposing divorce enable divorce, and they're in a poor position to help broken families. Another person writes this: this is not for children facing their parents' divorce right now, but for all those adult children of divorce who are struggling to forgive. I get it. I am sorry this is still a struggle, but we are all adults. At some point, we all have to take responsibility for our own lives and how we react. Yes, it's hard. It's hard. This is an adult talking to other adults who have been through divorce as children, but who are now adults. Yes, you can still hate the fact that your parents are divorced, but the reality is they are. And you are now an adult navigating in this world. Reach out to others who are in your boat. Talk to a therapist. You want to be free from this. You deserve to be free from this. Children, you should not have to live with the burden of what your parents did. This injustice that they committed against you, this should not be your burden. Talk to a therapist. Talk to somebody. You deserve to have this, to have freedom, to not feel that somehow this was your fault. Your heart must heal. Another person, another adult child of divorce, says this: I don't know what I would say to the child whose parents may be getting a divorce. I know words like "you'll get through this" have been a small comfort to me as a kid. Perhaps I'd emphasize that it was not the child's fault. It was not the child's fault, although that wouldn't have brought me much comfort either. Another person adds this: I don't know what to say to children who are facing divorce other than to look to things eternal. Your heart may be broken here. Look above, look to the things eternal. To children, we can live holy, sacramental, and loving marriages regardless of the negative examples we have seen around us, and including with our own parents. Another person writes this: to the children, I don't even know what to say. It makes me so sad when parents divorce while children are still living at home. It makes me just as sad, but in a different way, when parents with adult children divorce, because the feelings of adult children of divorce are disregarded even more than the feelings of minor children. So parents, if you have adult children and you say they're all out of the house, now we can get divorced, you're lying to yourselves too. You are absolutely lying to yourself. Your adult children feel the pain of divorce even as much, in a different way perhaps, but as much as minor children. Another person writes this: I would want to hand the child a book like Judith Wallerstein's The Unexpected Legacy of Divorce for them to read. when they get a bit older so they can understand some of the challenges they face. And Judith Wallerstein's book, The Unexpected Legacy of Divorce, was a 25-year study. And the study was done on these parents that wanted to have a good divorce. They wanted to be there for their kids. They were largely middle class and above. They were educated. They wanted to have a collegial divorce, a happy divorce, so to speak. And Judith Wallerstein initially was behind this. And of course, this sounds like a good idea. After her study, she realized the entire divorce industry, even the happy divorce, is a farce. It is a lie. It is destructive. It leaves scars on children even 25 years later. And sometimes those scars don't even appear until 20 or 25 years later. When you get divorced, you are condemning your children. In many instances, that doesn't have to be, they can overcome it, but you are putting a burden upon them that should not have been put upon them to begin with, and especially not by their own parents. I believe that divorce not only affects the relationship between children and their parents, but also can affect sibling relationships. I know that in our home, we ended up living with my mother. The divorce destroyed much of the sense of our being an actual family. Rather, it was like saying we were four people just living under the same roof.
Well, I disagree with your assumption that
Okay.
families are destroyed through this
May I add
process.
something here?
People living under the same roof versus being part of a family. What a shame that children should have to feel this way because of parents' decision. Or, in many instances, just one parent.
What we aim to do is just restructure a family that is not going to be together as a unit like they were.
Because one person
Because
says,
one
I don't want
person
it.
said, I don't want it.
One parent who decides that he or she is going to fly the coop, doesn't want to be married, wants to live selfishly, wants to think only about his needs or her needs, and disregard the children's. After all, I need to find myself. I need to explore for myself. I am a little bit unhappy right now. The reality is that most marriages do not have a large sense of unhappiness. There is one representative down in Texas who claims that so many cases of abuse are taking place in these marriages. The reality is she has been fed misinformation. That's not the case. Many divorces are just people that had average happiness, but they have somehow think that maybe the grass is greener out there somewhere, and they will destroy their children in pursuit of this dream, looking for this pot of gold underneath a rainbow that may or may not even exist. Once again, another person says, I would like to tell the children that divorce is not their fault, that their parents love them very much and don't want to hurt them. But again, the divorce is not their fault. The children facing their parents' divorce today, oh gosh, I want to put them in touch with resources to help them navigate it. I would want to give them permission to navigate it with all the highs and lows. I would tell them it's okay to be sad about it, and it's okay to wish things were different. The divorce does not mean that their lives will be terrible or that they can't go on to experience some great happiness. Why do children even have to face this burden to begin with? To the children, I would say this: if your parents are divorcing, please stay strong. It is in no way your fault. It is in no way your fault. And those people who work for the family destruction industry, the divorce attorneys and their accomplices, they want to, again, convince people that children are resilient, they're strong, they'll be happy if their parents are happy. And yet an adult child of divorce tells the child, please stay strong. It is in no way your fault. Don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. Pray for your parents. Please know that love is a decision, not a feeling. And that's part of the thing that we have in our society today when we think that love is a feeling. Love is a decision. Love is a choice that you make. You can exercise love even if you don't feel love. If all you are feeling is what you think is love, you are not rooted in reality. To the children, I would say this: trust God. Learn to truly be present to Him. Adults make mistakes, but God never does. He will be with you even when you are agonizing at the foot of the cross. Agonizing? I thought it was supposed to be pure happiness for these children, according to these divorce attorneys. Another person says this: well, I told my own children when my husband and I divorced that this wasn't their fault, that their father and I loved them very much and that we would do our best to make things easy for them. I just told them that every day, as much as they needed to hear it, that I loved them and that I would always be there, that I wasn't leaving. She kept on trying to reassure her children that what happened between their parents would not happen between the parents and the children. One other person writes, I don't know what to say about this. I'm sorry. I feel like I should have a lot to say here, but I just don't know. I know what I would have wanted somebody to say to me. I would have wanted that person to say to me, it's not your fault. It sounds so empty. People said it to me and I'm like, yeah, I know. But I guess I don't know. To children enduring a divorce, I simply pray for them. I don't want to promise them it will be okay. I do not want to promise them it will be okay, because it might be a very difficult time for them for the rest of their lives. However, they can find hope and healing in Christ, in the church, and in their own marriages. They can take heart because Christ makes all things new. Their marriages do not have to be a repeat of their parents' mistakes. Much of my healing has been in the beauty and stability of my own marriage. Another person writes this, to the children of divorce today, I once heard Dr. Laura Schlesinger say this, and I love it. You have two chances to have a family. Once as a child, where you have no control over it, and once as an adult, where you are making decisions as to how it will be. Well, no matter the level of your pain and trauma, it is in your hands to create a family life that you have always dreamed of having for yourself. Give your children what you didn't have, because you know what the other side of it is like, and you don't want to put the other child through that. Start making sacrificial decisions and make it happen. Another person says this, once again, to the children, I would say, it is not your fault. You are allowed to grieve. It is not okay that your parents are divorcing. And I am so sorry. To the children, I would say, seek out good models of marriage. If you get marriage and family right, you win more than if you had won a lottery. If you get it wrong, it could be a mistake with a very long shadow. No matter what happens, seek the Lord and depend on Him. Another person writes this, I really have no advice or words of comfort for kids going through divorce. I have made it my commitment to speak with love and honesty to my friends and family who are considering divorce, absent danger that is, and letting them know that I disagree with their solution. Divorce is not a solution. Divorce is the opening of a new can of problems, often many times worse than what you were experiencing prior to that, even if you were experiencing problems. To any children facing their parents' divorce, turn to Jesus and strengthen your relationship with Him. He will always be there for you. Another person writes, I would like to tell them that no matter what is said and done, it is not your fault that your parents are getting divorced. Have you yet noticed the theme? Children blame themselves for their parents' divorce. It is a burden that parents should not put upon their children. It is an evil injustice. You need to come clean with the fact that children are not resilient. Children often blame themselves for an adult's decision. It is not okay to say, my children will learn to accept it. You are the adults, you are the parents, you need to be there for your children and quit depending upon your children to give you the happiness. You should be protecting them and guaranteeing them, to the degree that you can, a better future. To the children, I would say, pray for your parents, talk to them, tell them how you feel. Another person says, this is hard for me because I remember praying to God to help my mom and dad, and it was not to be as I prayed, and I think that is the day that I lost faith. Child saying, I was praying for God to help my parents stay together. It never happened. I think that is the day that I lost my faith. We don't talk about this, but divorce causes children to lose their faith, to sometimes depart from their faith completely. To say, I want nothing to do with it. If God has let this happen to my family, what kind of a God must He be? Parents, you are responsible for this. And those who are standing around watching a parent, perhaps, or both parents, just turn apart their marriage and not saying anything, I will also say this, you are responsible. You have a responsibility to the children and to the grandchildren, to your neighbor children, whatever they may be, to your nieces, to your nephews. If you are by any means going along with this disaster that's taking place in their life, you are partially responsible for it. Once again, for the children, I am sorry. You are loved by a perfect Father. To the children, I would say this, people are going to let you down. They are going to be selfish. Even the people that you rely upon the most, your mother and father, they're going to be selfish. And I would also add again, a lot of what I'm talking about is like it's two people agreeing with it. In unilateral divorce, one person is forcing the other person into it, forcing this decision upon the entire family, and the person who does not want the divorce cannot do a thing about it. This is what it is in the state of Texas. All one person has to say is, I want out. There is really no protection for marriage. And by the way, the kids, well, they'll adjust. We'll just make sure somebody pays child support. That'll be okay for them. The kids will be fine. The state of Texas, our government officials, our divorce attorneys, our family court judges, they're lying if they think otherwise. I've also been a child of divorce, and make no mistake about it. No matter how amicable is your divorce, your children will be devastated, and they will never again be the same. The foundation will be pulled out from under them, and nothing will ever replace it. Anything else is a poor substitute for an intact family. Another person adds, I would tell the children, stay close to God. Do not be afraid to tell him how you feel. I would tell the parents that the grass isn't greener on the other side. If they run, they will find more problems. Another person says this, I want to encourage the children not to stuff down their feelings or keep them inside. I would tell them it is healthy to try to tell their parents how they feel and what they hope for, how they want the family to stay together. Their voices count, and they need to be heard in the family. The problem, one of the big problems with divorce today is that children are never consulted about how they feel. Do they want the family together? They're given the choice of which parent do you want to live with, but they are not given the choice of, children, do you want to see your parents divorced? That is an injustice in our system. It's an injustice in the family court system. It's an injustice perpetrated upon them by divorce attorneys who want to profit off of the destruction of these children's lives and their families. And again, I can keep going on and on. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to go through this. Every experience is different. Pray for your parents. I'm so sorry this is happening to you. It's not your fault. All of these things. So to you people who believe that children are resilient, children will be happy if their parents are happy, you are believing a lie. You're believing a lie, and that's all I can say. To those who are facing divorce, to the children whose parents are facing divorce, our hearts go out to you. We can't pretend everything's going to be okay, but we can start to fight to repeal this easy divorce culture so that things will be better for you and for the grandchildren of the future. Thank you.